Hello and welcome to Premier League All Access. New season, new name for the podcast, but some things stay the same. Alongside me, Sam Matterface, I've got the former FA Cup winner from 1997, the ex-Chelsea and Benfica and West Ham left-back, Scott Minto, and talkSPORT's chief football correspondent, Alex Crook. Here's what's coming up on the podcast.
I genuinely think we've got a 14 title race.
For me, and I'm just going to give you one answer, Manchester United will challenge for the title.
I think it all kind of depends on Højlund.
You two guys have got Chelsea at heart, and you're stood here now suggesting that if they challenge for 5th place, it's going to be a good season. If we'd have said that 2 years ago, you'd have thought we were mad.
Everybody I speak to, gentlemen, tells me, look, Luton are going down, Sheffield United are going to finish bottom. Is it as simple as that?
Yep. There's talk that maybe one or both might be rivaling Derby in terms of the lowest ever Premier League points tally.
Well, we're excited to be at Wembley after the Community Shield. We're going to look ahead to the whole season. We're going to look at who we think is going to win the title, who'll be the top scorer, who's going to be winning the race for the top 4 and getting into those coveted Champions League places. And also, we'll talk about the relegation situation as well. Quick reflections on the Community Shield. What did you make of it, Scott? Arsenal winning it on penalties and finally getting over the line against Manchester City after 8 straight defeats.
Mikel Arteta will be happy with that, won't they? Look, I think Kai Havertz had a couple of fantastic chances in the first half, should have put at least one of them away. And then when City did score, they looked in full control. So Arsenal kind of got a little bit lucky. Penalties, you never know what can happen. Hopefully for them, that gives them confidence. They can bridge the gap between themselves and City, but it doesn't really mean anything in terms of Premier League.
He's very stressed, is the Crookmeister, because he's been downstairs trying to hunt down interviews. He didn't get the player that he wanted. We won't tell you which one he did want and what he did get. But what did you think overall of the Community Shield itself? Did you think it was a success for Arsenal?
Yeah, I think so. I think you saw the celebrations at the end. We
certainly meant a lot to them, didn't it?
Absolutely, and we said before the game it was a chance to lay down a psychological message ahead of the season starting. I think they did that. I think there was a period at the end of the first half, start of the second, where actually they dominated the ball. Yeah. They looked the stronger side. You could see that they've been back in pre-season a bit longer than their opponents. I worry now about where the goals will come from. I think Kai Havertz had a couple of excellent opportunities, and I think they may rue that lack of an out-and-out number 9, particularly with Gabriel Jesus being injured. City, well, I think we got what we expected. Probably not quite there in terms of preparation, new players bedding in. I thought Kovacic was excellent in midfield, so it sets us up nicely for the season ahead.
Yep, okay. I was excited to see Julian Alvarez and him performing over the course of 90 minutes. Phil Foden made a difference when he came off the bench. Could be a big season for him. Could be a big season for Manchester City as well. A club that is looking to win a 4th Premier League title in a row. No one's ever done that before. Can they be the first? Now, I am hoping, just because of the name change, Premier League All Access, that Crook, you're still going to be as bold as ever and still going to be as cantankerous as ever.
Probably,
yeah, I would have thought so.
He's always cantankerous.
And Scott, you've maintained your good looks over the summer. Have you been doing a good pre-season?
I really havenent. I actually haven't done any exercise for the last month or so.
That makes you sick, doesn't it?
Well, you know, I'll get back to the fasting and the 20-minute hit programs once we're finished here, Sam. You're looking well as well, I've got to say. Look at you.
Well, let's see if we can.
Very summery.
Let's see if we can maintain it throughout the course of the season. And look, the title battle is the one that everyone's talking about. Arsenal, big contenders last year, but fell away right at the very end. Manchester City, I think, expected to be favourites, are favourites in the betting. Can you see anybody else winning the title apart?
Look, I think first of all we've got to talk about City, and you just mentioned about that no one in English top flight football has ever won 4 league titles in a row. That's going to be something special, and they're just coming off the back of a treble as well. Players have gone, and you can say key players. I think the likes of Gundogan has been a key player over recent seasons. I don't see them being quite as good as they've been over the last couple of campaigns. They're going to come down a little bit, but are they going to come down enough that other teams can catch them? So you've got to look at the best of the rest in that sort of aspect. I think Guardiola's a really good signing. Kovacic, I don't know why Chelsea let him go, I'll be honest with you.
No, I mean, a hefty fee as well. I mean, they really, prized him away at some cost, didn't they? I think it was £25 million. I mean, it's almost like a bargain signing for them, and it certainly looked like that in the Community Shield.
Yeah, and now Chelsea need to get another central midfielder. Yeah. But anyway, we won't go there about Chelsea. But I just feel, look, they couldn't have a better manager. You know what I think about Pep. I've spoken about Pep. I think he's the GOAT. And I know you think Fergie, and I get that. But I just think he's the person that will keep them on, and he's already showed last season that he will drop players if they're not absolutely at it. I don't think Haaland, I think he'll still be probably the top goal scorer in the Premier League, but he won't score as many. I know.
He's only scored in one of his last 9 games now, by the way.
I don't think he'll score as
without
many.
a goal.
I don't think he'll score as many this season coming. I really don't. So I think both individually and as a team, they'll drop off a little bit. But are there other teams that are able to get above them? I think that's the thing. And I'm looking at Arsenal, even though they won the Community Shield, I'm just not sure because they haven't got that goal scorer.
Okay, talk to me about the biggest problem that Pep faces, Crook. Is it trying to motivate a group of players that have won everything?
I think that's a big factor, and we'll go back to '99 when, of course, Manchester United were the first team in English football to win the treble, and there was a drop-off.
A long time ago now.
He had to get that in.
Yeah, he had to get it in, but it's a long time ago.
But there was a drop-off, and I think Dwight York, as Scott's mentioned to me, he certainly came out and said, I struggled to motivate myself the season after. He wasn't the only one.
Dwight York actually went to Fergie, apparently, and he said, I want a year off now with pay, and I'll come back the following season.
What was Fergie's response to that?
Apparently,
how many syllables were in the answer?
Apparently, it wasn't particularly positive, but at least he kept him at the club anyway.
Yeah.
But the point is,
he was never the same again, though. Dwight York after winning the treble. I'm not saying that Man City's players are going to drop off that dramatically.
But is that why they've allowed Mahrez to go, Gundogan to go, looking for fresh blood and bringing in Gvardiol and bringing in Kovacic?
And bringing through young players, maybe. I mean, that goal will do Cole Palmer no harm at all, because I think
terrific finish.
It's on a knife edge if he stays, or if maybe they're willing to let him go out on loan, or maybe even sell him. I know Brighton would be keen to sign him permanently. So I think he's doing the right thing by refreshing the squad. I don't think they'll get as many points as they did last season, but the big question that Scott's already asked, can anybody else close that gap? I think we all thought Arsenal could. I worry about that lack of a number 9. I wouldn't totally rule out Manchester United. That's not just me with red spectacles on.
Is Dwight York back?
I think Liverpool could be in the race as well. I genuinely think we've got a 14 title race this season.
Well, let's hope that we do, because that makes it exciting for us, right?
Sorry, Sam. Final one on City. I just in an article I was reading about Dwight York, Pep was saying that he won 4 straight titles playing for Barcelona.
Yeah.
The 5th season, he wasn't at it. The 6th season, he wasn't at it. It's human nature to just drop off a little bit. So he's going to need to be at them. He's going to need to rotate. I don't think they'll be as good, but let's talk about the contenders.
Well, the other contenders are, of course, Arsenal, who've come very, very close in the last year, maybe have strengthened better than others in terms of their overall squad over the last year, not just in this window, but when you look at the players that they've added in 2023, in January, Leandro Trossard, who got them the goal at the end of the game in the Community Shield, but also was their top scorer in pre-season. So he's an asset for them. A lot of their players are versatile, can play in a number of different positions, so it gives him options across the field. And the other contenders are probably Manchester United and Liverpool. Is that fair?
I think that's my top 4. I wouldn't be bold enough to give you an order at this moment in time, but I think Chelsea, despite the fact I'm Pochettino's biggest fan, have still got a lot of work to do.
Who can breach Manchester City's grasp on that big trophy?
I think all those 3. I think Liverpool will be better. They've obviously revamped their midfield. They've still got incredible options going forward. I'm excited to see what they'll do with Trent Alexander-Arnold this season, and maybe a change of position for him. I think Manchester United have got their business done early, and they've signed the players that Erik Ten Hag wanted to sign. They've got their spine of the team now. They've improved in the goalkeeping department. Mason Mount will add to the midfield. Højlund is a raw gem, but if he works out as Ten Hag thinks he can, then maybe that could turn into a genius signing. And with Arsenal, they will learn from what happened last season. They're a young group of players. They will store that away mentally. Declan Rice adds a lot to the team. I thought Timber actually playing in an unfamiliar position, because obviously
he was terrific,
usually plays on the opposite flank. I think he'll provide something as well. I'm not sold on Kai Havertz. That's not just because he's missed a couple of chances in the Community Shield.
Didn't you back him for first goal scorer?
I did back him for first goal scorer.
Did you rue that?
Because I knew, well, I did when he missed the 2 chances, yeah. Maybe that's why I'm being so critical. But I think £65 million, I think if I were Arsenal, maybe I'd have tried to get Rasmus Højlund, get an actual centre forward.
Well, it's interesting.
The mortgage was about to be paid off if Kai Havertz.
It's interesting because Arsenal obviously went through that period where they were criticised for not spending enough. They've given full control to Edu and Arteta to reshape the squad, and they've done that very well. Similarly, Manchester United have been criticised for not strengthening their team. They have firmed up that spine. Onana's going to give you some hairy moments, though, Scott. I don't know if you saw him getting chipped from 45 yards in pre-season and Mason Mount missing a sitter. You know, those moments, although they don't mean anything because it's pre-season, if they do not happen, or if, you know, he does get the goal, Mason Mount, they start the season on a flyer, don't they?
The Onana thing's been overplayed massively.
Why?
Because goalkeepers now are encouraged to play a long way off their line.
So how has it been overplayed?
If a teammate gives the ball away in midfield, as a modern-day goalkeeper, you are susceptible to being beaten by that kind of shot.
Yeah, but you still need to be careful.
Nearly happened to Aaron
happened in the
Ramsdale
Community
in the Community Shield.
Yeah,
still-
absolutely.
but
But
you
it
still-
did happen. No one overplayed
But it's not a goalkeeping error, in my opinion.
No one said it was,
No,
did
it's
they?
not what he's saying. What
We
he's
just
saying
said what
is,
happened.
A lot of people have said it's an error.
Okay, you're getting a bit prickly. Are
Yeah.
you worried? Are you worried?
Not
You starting
worried
to
at all.
worry about
Not
Manchester
worried
United
at
all
all.
of a sudden?
Can
You
I
had a
get-
lot of confidence about 10 minutes ago.
Still got confidence. I think Onana will be a really good goalkeeper.
Can I get a word
So
in
do
now?
I.
Yeah, join in,
Is
mate.
that right?
Join in.
Thank you. Or were you paid per minute? Is that what it is?
It's paid per word.
Per word, sorry, yeah. Look, the Onana thing, you're absolutely right in the way you worded it. You're right in what you're saying, but that can happen. And because the sweeper keeper, they will be out. They've got to be careful of that. But I just think, again, you can learn in pre-season. I don't read much into that Onana situation. I don't read much into Mason Mount missing the chance. I think it all kind of depends on Højlund. And that's a big, big thing to do. If you wanted a striker...
It's a big burden to shoulder
Absolutely.
for such a young player.
And that's my point. You know, you look at United, they have bought well with Onana, and they are wanting to play the way that Ten Hag plays. I think Mason Mount is an excellent player. Again, don't get me going about Chelsea letting him go. I think if they get Amrabat in, he was an excellent player, both in the World Cup, and I thought he was the best player in the Europa Conference League final as well. I just think in terms of Højlund, what United need are goals, like Arsenal as well.
Well, that was their failing last year. They didn't get
Absolutely.
enough goals. If you look at Rashford getting 30 of them, it shows you that actually there wasn't enough from other areas of the field.
And
I think they'll add that this year.
Can
I
you
agree.
rely on Rashford to get another 30 goals this season? I'm not so sure.
No,
I think
but
he's
you
one
might
of
not
those who
have
scores
to.
in streaks.
You think that Anthony's going to be better than he was? Garnacho's going to come to the fore this year. I actually think, and this is a bit of a bold claim, that I think Manchester United are going to be Manchester City's closest challengers this year. They're going to be up there with Arsenal and City.
I agree
in
with
terms
you on
of fighting
Anthony.
for
Don't
the
disagree
title.
with that.
I agree with you on Anthony. I think he took a lot of stick last season, mainly from Gabby Ogbonnahor,
It's
actually.
not just from Gabby Ogbonnahor, mate.
But he scored an excellent goal in that friendly at Old Trafford the weekend. Really good finish. I think he's a young player who clearly has an incredible amount of talent, and he has the personality to be a Manchester United player and take the criticism that comes with it. I think he might get double figures this season. There you go.
Okay, so I think Manchester United will push City close. Who do you think will push City close?
No, I think it's Man U and Arsenal. I really do. You know, you look at the best of the rest of last season, and it was Arsenal. Arsenal dominated the Premier League and then just fell away at the end. And they bought Declan Rice. Timber is a very good signing as well. I think Rice would be one of the best midfielders if he's not already in the Premier League. It's just the goals. But then you look at United as well, and I just think it's a big, weight that he's got to carry. Wearing the Manchester United shirt, Jadon Sancho couldn't do it. I know he's been playing as a false nine in pre-season, but I can't rely on him during the season. Marcus Rashford is better off the left. So then you're relying on Højlund to actually be not just be fit, but scoring the goals, and that's a big thing to ask.
I think Onana makes them play differently, and I think that their midfield has been strengthened. I think obviously you've got the wider options that will be better this season. For me, and I'm just going to give you one answer: Manchester United will challenge for the title. Who's going to win it? One team.
I'm going to say Arsenal.
Okay.
I'm going to say Arsenal.
Scott?
I've changed. A week ago I said Arsenal. I look at Jesus being injured now, and I just look at them and I just think, where are the real goals coming from? I've said all along throughout the whole summer they needed a striker. I know it's not one word.
It's not.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but even though I think they're going to drop, at this moment in time, I still think City know how to win.
Okay, that's a Manchester City for Scott. I'm going to go for Manchester United.
Go on,
Just. And he's going for Arsenal at the end, which will please Mrs. Crook, won't it?
Absolutely.
Will do, yeah. The race
Nice
for the
photo, by the way, of Mrs. Crook.
yeah, with
Fabio Vieira.
Fabio
wasn't it?
Vieira. That's doing the rounds on socials, isn't
The
it?
funny thing about that is that we were in this bar in Portugal, and we knew he was famous because people kept coming over
You
and
didn't
asking for
recognise
selfies.
him?
I I didn't recognise
You're
him.
a commentator.
She didn't recognise
You're
him
a
as an
reporter.
Arsenal fan.
Chief football correspondent from talkSPORT fails to recognise Arsenal footballer in pub. Then again, you probably had a few.
It wasn't Aaron Ramsdale, that's the problem.
It wasn't his best mate, Aaron Ramsdale. Right, okay, let's talk about the race for the Champions League places, because there's quite a few teams that think that they can get into Europe's top footballing competition. But there is a scenario here when we have to recognise it, where it could be that we get 5 teams in the Champions League, depending on coefficient. The mechanism isn't entirely clear. It's likely, let's just say it that way. But there's no doubt about it, when you go back and look at the number of teams that are vying to get into the top 4 positions, 7, 8 of them doesn't work into 4. So there's going to be some disappointed clubs at the end of the season. Chelsea have retooled. We haven't really spoken about them apart from bemoaning the fact that they have been pretty useless in terms of allowing good players to go. So Scott, what are your hopes for Chelsea this season?
Do you know what? I'm actually quite confident, and not in terms of obviously winning the title, but not even, I wouldn't put them in the top 4, but I think they've got a chance of getting that 5th position. I think Poch is the right man. I think both on and off the pitch, he's able to manage up as well as get good players.
He's so friendly and so happy all the time.
Oh, he's lovely, isn't he?
He is.
I haven't
He's
even
just
met
a nice
him.
guy to hang around with.
I can
had
tell
a
he's a
coffee
lovely
with
guy.
him back in Soccer Aid days. He's just always happy.
I bet he made you feel all glowing.
He did, you know, he made me feel like I was. He actually got up to greet me as if I was like a long lost friend.
He does that to everyone.
I know, he does it to everyone. That's his skill.
Apart from cooking.
I think someone had just told him my name about 2 minutes before. But he is a good character to be
Absolutely.
around. Yeah.
Listen, pre-season has gone well. How much you read into that? But I do think the culture of what happened last season needed to be changed, and it has been changed. And there's still ins and outs that need to happen. You know, Nkunku, I think, has been really good. Nicholas Jackson has been excellent. Carney Chukwuemeka has been great.
You can't get excited, though, can you, about pre-season? I mean, it's not
No,
like we're
you
going
can't.
down to tattooist and asking for Summer Series 2023 tattooed on our calves because we're delighted about the trophy. Although
there's
it might
room
be the
there.
only one that Chelsea win over the next few years.
No, but what he's doing is he is getting the culture back of what is a winning culture and actually a happy atmosphere. And he's bringing the squad numbers down. He knows who he wants. And look, what do I think? I think Chelsea have a chance of getting that 5th spot. And if that 5th spot means that they go on to the Champions League, because don't forget they haven't got any European competitions coming up this year. And that
can't
will
fail
help
to
a lot.
forget that, Scott.
No.
They lost 16 Premier League games last season. I'll guarantee you one thing about Chelsea this season. They won't lose 16 games this campaign in the Premier League. I think after the Mason Mount situation, they needed to make sure they kept Levi Colwill. And that's a big boost, I think, for them and the fan base.
And for England, because I think if he has the kind of season that we're expecting, I think he will be on the plane for the European Championships next summer. Obviously, he won it with the under-21s, which give him valuable experience. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously, you two guys have got Chelsea at heart, and you're stood here now suggesting that if they challenge for 5th place, it's going to be a good season.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
I mean, if we'd have said that 2 years ago, you'd have thought we were mad.
Well,
but
2 years ago they won the Champions League.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what?
Cut your cloth though.
But
Cookie. Know where you are right
but
now.
you guys are representation of the Chelsea fan base.
You loved the Carabao Cup last year, didn't you? Because you had to cut your cloth accordingly.
Yeah, but we still finished in the top 4 and made the FA Cup final as well. But are the fans going to accept that maybe the top 4 is beyond their reach? Because part of the issue that Graham Potter had, and I know you don't think he was a particularly good choice for manager, but the fans weren't necessarily on the same page as the owners in terms of being patient.
Okay.
Are they going to be patient when Mauricio Pochettino?
They will be.
Bearing in mind his Tottenham background,
but
because there are some Chelsea supporters who weren't happy when Pochettino was appointed because he was an ex-Spurs manager.
I think it's different because of the timing. If he'd come in straight after Thomas Tuchel, he would have got the same treatment. But it's different now. They look at it. The Chelsea fans, I'm sure, are looking at this thinking, we need to get back on track. If this guy gets us back on track, they won't even remember that he was the Tottenham manager. If he wins something for Chelsea in the next couple of years, that's all forgotten, that's all gone.
What would the mood be like if they're 3-0 down at home to Liverpool next Sunday
Well,
at
it's not going to be
half-time?
great, is it? But it's not going to be directed towards him, because I think everybody knows over the course of the last year, the problems have been with the ownership and the recruitment and the management of the club as a whole, rather than what's in the dugout. I mean, I don't think Graham Potter did a particularly good job. I thought he was the wrong appointment at the wrong time for Chelsea. They need someone who's a bit more experienced, good at managing up, good at managing down, and that's Mauricio Pochettino at this moment in time. I don't think it's going to lead to Chelsea being Champions League winners next year or title winners, but if they can get into the top 4 or 5, they've done a brilliant job. And I think,
and don't forget where they've come from. You know, it's 12th, it's bottom half.
Lost 16 games.
Absolutely. So 5th is
couldn't score any goals.
Is massive progression, and I think Chelsea fans will be okay with that.
Let's move on to Liverpool, because they've strengthened quite a lot. They want to be top 4 contenders. What happens if Jurgen Klopp doesn't get them into the top 4 this year?
Yeah, it's after not doing it again, I think it's a big year for him, isn't it? I mean, you know, in the world we live in, sort of everyone has a very short memory. He's still one of the best managers in the world, but he needs to prove again that they should at least get into the top 4. And look, I do think they will. I think the strikers have always been there. I can see Darwin Núñez actually being an absolute pest as always, but sticking the ball in the back of the net. I do think they have goals. I think the midfielders that they brought in, certainly with McAllister, is very good signings. And then you're talking about defensively. I know Crookie was mentioning about Trent and where he'll play. I do think he'll play as that right back, but sort of moving in. And because when you have possession, you're able to do that. So look, I think they're in a good place. I don't think they'll win the title. I don't even think they'll finish in the top 2. But I think there'll be a marked improvement again.
Premier League All Access will bring you 2 podcasts every single week, Mondays and Thursdays. We'll have a visualised podcast on a Monday where we review all of the action from the weekend. It's the best place to catch up from people that go to a lot of games. The first weekend of the season, I'll be at Arsenal, Chelsea and Manchester United. You're coming to Manchester United with me, aren't you, on Monday? Chelsea with me on Sunday. You're not coming to Arsenal as well, are you?
I'm with you.
You're with me at Arsenal.
I'm at Brighton
on
the Saturday, so yeah, well, you get a day off.
You'll get a day off.
They'll be sucking up to everyone at Brighton. Second favourite side, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we'll talk about Brighton. There might be dark horses for another European place, but they've got European football, and the distraction of European football when you are trying to finish in the top 4, when you're not an established member of that top 4, is always difficult, and Newcastle might find that to be a bit of a problem.
I think they will. And actually, I've taken a bit of stick from Newcastle fans for suggesting that
just Newcastle fans.
Well, there's a few clubs that you can add to that list. But I've suggested that maybe there will be a drop off this season. I think Eddie Howe did remarkably well with the tools at his disposal to get them to a cup final here at Wembley, to get them cemented in the top 4. And actually, it never really looked like they were going to fall out of the top 4, even when Liverpool were breathing down their necks at the end of the season. Tonali, from what I'm told, is going to be an excellent addition. I think Harvey Barnes is an upgrade on Sam Maximin. Tino Livramento from Southampton, if he can stay fit, will be an option, but I think it's more of a long-term signing. I would worry about the depth of the squad with Champions League football as well, and I think other teams are improving around them. I think Aston Villa, we need to talk about.
You are hot on Aston Villa, aren't you?
Very hot.
He's got the bet,
He's got the bet with Jim White, so he's like non-stop talking them up.
But that doesn't mean that I think Newcastle are a bad side, by the way. Well, I think they're going to sign more. I think they do need a little bit more. They're a bit too reliant maybe on Ollie Watkins in terms of that top end of the pitch. Moussa Diaby is my tip for dark horse player of the season. I think he's going to be excellent in the Premier League. I like Pau Torres, and they've also got Diego Carlos to come back from injury, who will be like a new signing. So I think with a couple of additions, I really think Villa could go close in terms of challenging for those Europa League places.
The Europa League places.
Yeah, not the Champions League, but I don't think Newcastle will qualify for the Champions League. That's not because I don't like Newcastle.
Newcastle.
I love Newcastle.
So anti-Newcastle.
Brilliant football club.
It's unbelievable.
But I just think it's difficult.
Newcastle.
I think it's difficult.
I think he's hosting an event in Newcastle very soon, so if you want to go and barrack him, tickets will be available. Let's move on. Aston Villa, another one that is a contender. Do you share Crookie's optimism? They've got a very good manager who did a brilliant job.
Well, look, I think you're talking, he's mentioned both of those, so I'll touch on both of those as well. I agree with him totally about Newcastle. I think there's a group of players there that completely overachieved, and I do worry about them trying to combine the Premier League and also the Champions League. In terms of Aston Villa, I'm still not sure whether Villa will finish above Newcastle, because I think while they've bought well, I think we know that Unai Emery loves a European competition. For me, they're almost, nothing's bang on, but surely they're the favourites for that.
Oh, they'll win that.
I followed West Ham last season, and they're not good sides in that competition.
Well, we had a great night in Prague as a result of West Ham's success, but I must admit it was one of those sort of experiences where you were expecting West Ham to get there because of the level of opposition they were playing. Towards the end of the campaign, they had to play brighter opposition, but yes, I can.
Yeah, but they also got outplayed by AZ Alkmaar. I felt in the semi-final and also in the final Fiorentina.
That's the style.
But they found a way to win.
Yeah, we've got a very good friend who's due to get married on the night of the Conference League final. Yeah. So if Villa do get there, Sam might have a massive decision to make.
I'll be at the Conference League final.
To be fair, you've not actually been invited to the wedding yet.
I haven't, no, but he hasn't invited anyone yet, if I remember rightly, because he's a little bit,
I've been invited.
You're the best man, aren't you?
I am, yeah.
Well, it'll be a good job if you were there.
Who's made you the best man?
Who would want him as their best man?
I never go to a wedding and just be a guest. Everyone wants a bit of Crook in their life.
That's because everyone wants a bit of Crook in their life. Do you really just say that? That's because he basically demands that he should be the best man.
Yeah, I'm not going unless.
Yeah, exactly it. He's like a bit of a wedding crasher. Tottenham Hotspur want to crash the top 4 places. They've got a new manager in Ange Postecoglou. At this moment in time, we don't know whether Harry Kane's staying or whether he's going. I'm not even sure Daniel Levy knows whether he's staying or whether he's going. It's a very odd situation. You and I were having a bit of a discussion about it earlier on today, in which we sort of came to the conclusion that if he doesn't go to Bayern Munich, I think he'll probably sign a new contract at Spurs, because the options for where he can go next season, although he's been on free transfer, the wages are so hefty. Is there that many takers for him in the Premier League? Will there be that many takers for him in the Premier League?
It's a brilliant question, because we know that Manchester United, one of the things they've done this summer is really bring down the payroll. They don't want a situation where one player in the dressing room is earning dramatically more than everybody else. Chelsea are having to balance FFP. They'd be the two obvious contenders if Harry Kane became available. Maybe Manchester City if Erling Haaland decided at some point that he'd like to go to Real Madrid. But I think you're right. I think if he doesn't go this summer, there's every chance that he does sign a new contract. And here's another bold claim.
Oh, here we go.
If he does stay at Spurs, I think that supply line between him and Maddison could be a real joy to watch this season. I think if Kane stays, they finish above Chelsea. So there goes Scott's prediction that Chelsea will finish 5th.
All right, so he said Chelsea will finish below Tottenham, so Chelsea will finish below Tottenham.
Well,
that's how it works.
Have you met Alex Crook?
It's like being the best man as well, isn't it?
He relegated Brentford last season. No one ever brings up the fact that in the second season, Brentford were definitely, 100% going down. Did they? No.
I also relegated Sheffield United in their second season.
Well done.
As you
Even
remember.
a stop clock is right twice a day.
Absolutely.
Tottenham, in terms of where you think they're going to finish?
Look, I genuinely believe whether Harry Kane stays or goes, I think Postecoglou is really the perfect man for Spurs.
He'll make everybody feel good around the place.
I think he's about 5th or 6th choice, isn't he, in terms of the amount of people they spoke to before they actually came to him.
But they'll tell you that wasn't the case.
Yeah, they were never in for Nagelsmann. Remember that? They were never in for Nagelsmann. They turned him down rather than the other way around.
And Luis Enrique as well.
Yeah, they turned him down. The PSG
There was the guy in Holland, wasn't there? Who was the guy in Holland?
The guy from
Feyenoord, was it?
Feyenoord, Arne Slot, is that right?
Yeah, they didn't want him either.
But look, actually that's a little bit irrelevant, even though, it is true. Postecoglou, for me, is the right man for Spurs, because I think he's hungry in himself. He hasn't got the ego that the previous managers have had. And I think he does play a really good brand of football that Spurs fans would love to watch, even if they're not winning trophies. Harry Kane, for me, look, if I was a left back in a team with Harry Kane, I'd say go and get Harry Kane, and I do not care if you're on £1 million a week. Go and get us the goals, help me get a trophy, and thank you very much for that. So if you're 10 times more money than me, then so be it. But clearly modern day football is a little bit different.
FFP's starting to bite now, Scott, though. Yeah. I mean, you look at all of the clubs, and they're all in this situation where they're having to think about what they spend.
Manchester United can deal with it.
Well, Manchester United might be able to deal with it, but I don't know if their manager particularly is interested in doing it, because if he was, I think they would have pushed harder this summer. The fact that they decided to pivot and go to Højlund suggests to me that they've decided against it anyway.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that, but all I'm saying is Harry Kane guarantees you goals. And if United had Harry Kane, I know we're talking about the wages and they're not going to go down that, but if they had it and just went for it, I'm telling you now, I would be saying Man U for the title.
Okay, so the question was, where did Tottenham finish? Where did Tottenham finish? Above or below Chelsea?
Below Chelsea.
I feel a wager coming on, but then he doesn't settle his debts, does he?
He didn't settle his debt last season. I'm
Hold
still
on a
hungry.
sec.
I haven't eaten since the end of the season.
I've asked you more than once to say give me some dates, and you haven't got me any dates.
Honestly, I've given you loads of dates.
No, you haven't.
You've been in Ibiza for half the summer.
No, I haven't.
You really have.
The quarter of the summer. You can still give me dates. It still works.
Okay, we'll give you dates. All right, okay. Okay, so any other interlopers can make it into the European places. We've mentioned quite a lot of them.
Well,
we sort of referenced Brighton without really going into.
They'll struggle to.
No, I think we need to reference Brighton, and I agree. I think again, inevitably there should be a drop-off, because I think Roberto De Zerbi is going to take the Europa League very seriously.
He's not going to allow him to drop off. Have you met Roberto De Zerbi?
Exactly.
No, but there's one thing saying I don't want you to drop off, and we're at it. There's another thing actually, the players going out there and doing it on a regular basis, and the Europa League combined with the Premier League plus the players they've lost already, and we'll see what happens with Caicedo. I think it's going to be very difficult.
They've only lost one player at the moment, Alexis McAllister. At the moment, Caicedo is still very much a Brighton player, despite the fact he missed the friendly. Picked up an injury in training, I'm told.
Knock. Did he?
Well, we shall see.
Yeah.
But they've invested. João Pedro, club record signing. Mohamed Kudus looks like he could be a new club record signing.
They're going to keep hold of Kara Matoma.
Yes, I think Matoma will stay. I think probably will sign a new contract. And it was interesting, just speaking to Stefan Ortega, the Man City goalkeeper in the tunnel, I asked him how many teams could compete for the title, and he said in terms of the top 4, there's 7 or 8 teams, and he referenced both Brighton and Newcastle, which tells me that other teams in the Premier League right at the top are starting to take Brighton seriously.
Yeah, I think that's certainly true, and Brighton, I think, believe that they can achieve something special this season, whether that's in the Europa League or whether it's in the Premier League will remain to be seen. Right, at the bottom of the table, not much competition in terms of relegation. Apparently, it's already decided. Well, it does look like it's going to be a long season for Sheffield United and possibly Luton Town as well. Everybody I speak to, gentlemen, tells me, look, Luton are going down, Sheffield United are going to finish bottom, and there's really only one place to avoid this season, that's 18th in the Premier League. Is it as simple as that?
Yep. In my opinion.
Yep.
You know, Sheffield United have sold their best player right on the eve of the season. When we spoke to Paul Heckingbottom on the podcast, we sensed that maybe there wouldn't be a lot of money to spend. Luton, for me, are recruiting sensibly because they're signing players that may be able to make the step up to the Premier League, but if they can't,
that is sensible,
and they go down, they'll be ready-made for the Championship. I think even the fans of both those two clubs are probably accepting that they're going to go down. There's talk that maybe one or both might be rivaling Derby in terms of the lowest ever Premier League points tally.
Well, we'll have to see on that one, but I just think in terms of Luton, it's just an incredible story they're there in the first place.
Luton can come into the Premier League and they can have fun, right? They
Absolutely.
can enjoy it.
There's
they
no
can
pressure.
They can be.
Not sure their football is going to be much fun, by the way.
Listen, it takes. There's several ways to skin a cat, and actually they were really entertaining, productive at some points last season. You know, they get you off your seat every now and again, so don't write them off. Don't be a footballing snob, Crook, just because you don't fancy going to Kenilworth Road on the opening weekend of the season.
The Southern United supporting fan obviously is a snob, isn't it?
It'll be a novelty for Luton fans to go to Man City, to go to Arsenal, to go to Manchester United.
Might not be a novelty when they're 6 down at half time.
It might be a novelty for some of those teams to go to Kenilworth Road as well. But for Sheffield United, they've recently been in the Premier League. They stayed here for 2 seasons. I mean, this is quite dispiriting that they've managed to get themselves to a playoff semi-final, lost out to Nottingham Forest, got themselves back into the Premier League this time around, and they're not going to be able to give it a go because the ownership situation has just not been sorted out.
And that's disappointing because it looked at one stage like they were close to being sold. I think the current owner has made it pretty clear that he's not going to invest in the football team. The fact that in the end, having indicated that maybe a new contract was in the offing, Iliman Ndiaye still ended up joining Marseille. I could only see a long, hard season. And actually, it's not just selling Ndiaye. I understand that Paul Heckingbottom was quite keen to keep Billy Sharp as part of the furniture, and he was released, so I'm not really too sure what happened there.
He gave his number 10 shirt to Iliman Ndiaye, and then Iliman Ndiaye.
But I think he's the type of player that even if he's not going to play week in, week out...
He's not really fit enough to play in the Premier League.
You need him in the dressing room.
Absolutely.
In my opinion.
So character, you're talking about character.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more, because
why didn't he absorb him into the coaching staff or something like that? Was that not possible?
I think he felt sore that he didn't get another year on his playing contract.
Well, yeah, they should have looked after him, because one thing you're going to be sure about when you're a promoted side, especially with respect to Sheffield United and Luton, is you're going to lose a lot of games. So therefore, coming in day after day, it's going to be very down. You need people who are going to be upbeat, good professionals, going to be at it on a daily basis. Things that fans don't see, behind just match days. You look at Luton, great story. They'll get the odd great win at Kenilworth Road, but away from home, I can't see them winning many games at all. And Sheffield United, Paul Heckingbottom had one hand tied behind his back before Ndiaye went. Now he's got both of them, and it was an amazing job for him to get them up there straight up. Both of them are coming straight down.
Premier League All Access coming live from Wembley Stadium ahead of the new season, looking ahead to everything that we think might happen over the course of the next few months. You'll be able to leave some comments in the bottom of the YouTube page if you're watching on YouTube, or send us a tweet if you've got predictions for the new season. So if we're accepting that Sheffield United are going down, and we think that Luton will probably struggle as well, who are the other contenders for the drop? Because Everton have got problems with FFP, and so have Wolverhampton Wanderers. Both those two teams arguably look weaker today than they did last season.
I think if you're talking about Wolves, it's quite simple. If Lopetegui stays, I think he can keep them up. If he doesn't, they're in massive trouble.
Yeah, he's trying to get the sack though, right?
Well, he's trying to come out and say a few things, and he's almost doing.
I think he's trying to get himself fired, and I think he's increasingly putting them in a very difficult position, because you can't have a situation, as Bournemouth found out last season, where your manager keeps on coming out and bemoaning the financial situation.
Well, he's telling the players that they're not good enough to stay in the league.
Exactly. Yes, it's not ideal from Wolverhampton Wanderers' perspective, but listen, they did back him in January. They spent a lot of money in January. Now, did they tell him at the end of that transfer window that actually this is going to affect your summer budget?
He says that he didn't know the situation was as dire as it was.
Well, that's a really interesting turn of events, and I guess the truth is probably somewhere in between. But I think if you're looking at that third relegation place, you look at the players that have moved on. No Neves. Raul Jimenez probably had lost a lot of his powers, but was still a focal point that they haven't got. Collins has gone for decent money to Brentford that won't be reinvested. They look primed for a relegation dogfight. I'm not convinced by Everton, but Sean Dyche.
I think Sean Dyche is the kind of character.
Get teams relegated. I know he did at Burnley.
He can sort of look. Yeah, well, he didn't really, because he was left before they got relegated, and actually they still had a chance of staying up after he had left the building. I think he'll keep Everton up. He's the kind of guy that can find a couple of decent players down the back of a sofa and do enough just to dig out a Premier League campaign. I mean, Ashley Young, for example, coming into the team, is a prime example of a player that he knows he can rely on, give instructions to. It ain't going to be pretty watching Everton.
It hasn't been pretty for a few years, has it?
True.
And to be fair, you know, Sean Dyche you would think is the perfect man in that sense, but how much can he keep on, you know, doing what, or Everton as a football club, and how the fans are fed up clearly with what they've seen over the last few years.
You can understand that.
Absolutely, 100%.
If I was an Everton fan, I'd be furious about the way the club has been
therefore, if they don't start well, the disgruntlement is going to happen a lot earlier. So I think it's very difficult. Again, Ashley Young, one of those in the dressing room, perfect professional. But how many games is he going to play, and how many games will he affect over a whole season? You know, you look at Bournemouth, and we've mentioned it before. I'm really sorry to see Gary O'Neill not around, but Areola, I think, is a good coach.
So you don't think they're contenders for relegation? Because I looked at the odds today, right?
They're third favourites.
And they are third favourites, followed quickly by Nottingham Forest, who've had a less chaotic summer than they had last year. They haven't really got in the kind of players that I think Steve Cooper wanted just yet.
But with respect to betting odds, it's where the money goes, and if people don't know much about Areola, then people will think, oh, well, they've got rid of Gary O'Neill.
Well, we're lucky we've spoken a lot about Areola, and we've spoken to him as well. We know the kind of bloke that Bournemouth have got, and we know the style of play that they can envisage down there, which means high pressing, lots of work rate. They'll be solid at the back, and then they'll look to attack in numbers. He's very fond of statistics, very fond of high intensity football. Do we think that this is going to be an upgrade for Bournemouth?
Yes, I do, long term. And again, you know, nothing against Gary O'Neill. We both thought, Scott and I, that he was a contender for manager of the season last year. But sometimes you have to make tough decisions. And this reminds me a little bit of when Brighton decided to move on. Chris Hughton wasn't very popular.
Similar to Southampton getting rid of Nigel Atkins.
Absolutely. Unknown Mauricio Pochettino quickly won over the Southampton fans.
I think he took them out for a cup of coffee and gave them a big cuddle,
charmed them,
greeted them like they were long lost friends.
What would concern me as we record this podcast is they've not done enough at the moment in the transfer market, Bournemouth. I think Kirkes at left back is going to be a really good addition. They had the midfielder lined up from Fiorentina, failed a medical. They're trying to get Alex Scott. I think that probably will happen, but maybe towards the end of the window.
Didn't they get a couple of good numbers in January?
Yes, they did.
Dango Ouattara did well, came in and stiffened the squad and gave them another attacking dimension. They brought in Justin Kluivert.
He will also improve the players that are already there as well. So I actually really like him. Am I ruling them out as contenders? No.
They've got a tough start as well. You look at their first 10 games of the season.
And that start can be a problem, because that can then snowball if you've only got 5 points of the first 10 games. Suddenly everything's doom and gloom. I just believe that he's a very good coach. I think he'll get the best out of them. I think, you've got Forest, who I like, Steve Cooper as well. They haven't gone as crazy this year as they did last year. I think they look a little bit more...
I think they'd be sailing close to FFP if they went as crazy this year as they did last.
But defensively, I think they look reasonably strong, and I think they've got some good attacking players. So am I ruling them out? No, but I don't think they will go down either.
I was worried about Fulham at one stage, because we thought Marco Silva would go, we thought Mitrovic would go. There was a chance
on a plane to Saudi Arabia at one
Willian would go, but it looks like they're all going to stay. Paulinho as well, West Ham have tried to get him out. That isn't going to happen. So I think they're going to be okay now.
Is the danger of sort of doing this now? We're talking about this, 5 days before the start of the Premier League season, that actually there's going to be so much change even between now and the end of the transfer window. And that must be as unsettling as for us making predictions, but more so for managers who are trying to hold on to players.
I think, honestly, the predictions, what we say now, I'm not going to say don't listen to us, but what I'm going to say is when we have that, once the transfer window closed, that's going to be more. We've seen a few games. We know exactly who's got the squads. And then we can give a more informed opinion as to what's going to happen.
Scott's caveat, by the way, because we're about to make our predictions for the new season.
Didn't you get stick from Adrian Durham last season because you had 7 teams going down at one stage?
Yeah, and then hold on a second.
Didn't you have 7 teams going into Europe?
I didn't have 7 teams. I said there are 7 teams who could easily go down. Now, if you remember the March international break, there were 9 teams actually that could have gone down. And I texted him because I heard on national radio that 3 months later he said exactly the same thing that I said. And it was 3 months later.
You've always been
and
a
he had a little
trendsetter.
chuckle up. You know,
But
so.
he does like a little bit of a poke every now and again, doesn't he,
Yeah.
the boy Durham? He misses the drive
He's a bad
time
kid.
gig. Yeah.
He's a bad kid. But we love
I
him.
don't think there are 8 or 9 teams who could go down this year. I think
No.
it's actually a very small list.
Yeah, and there's only one place to fill apparently, according to you two. So maybe
Do you
that's,
disagree with that? You think Luton or Sheffield United will stay up?
I think that Sheffield United will go down. I think out of the two of them, Luton have got a better chance because I think that they'll harness the power of Kenilworth Road, but I don't think they'll survive. And that's not being just following the herd. I just think looking at them and looking at their squad, I don't think they've got the quality to do that. It's an unforgiving place, the Premier League. There will be one that drops. There'll be someone that doesn't get it right. I think it might be Wolverhampton Wanderers because they found themselves in a situation with Julian Lopetegui that isn't ideal, but the issue there is a bit like what happened with Bournemouth last season. When you have a manager that comes out and then gets himself fired, which I think will happen at Wolverhampton Wanderers, they replace him with someone else who's got a point to prove. And that may well change the narrative for Wolverhampton Wanderers, which means Everton and Nottingham Forest, I think, will be scrapping towards the bottom of the table.
Why have none of us mentioned Burnley in this conversation?
That is a very good question. That's because we're sort of mesmerised by passes now. A bit like I was on Friday night when I went to Sheffield Wednesday, Southampton with you, and there was 991 of them for Southampton.
Amazing.
And Burnley have got the ability to do that, Scott.
They have, but it's a big step up, isn't it? Now, Vincent Kompany has
Signed
to
a good
realise-
goalkeeper. I like the boy Trafford.
No, absolutely. And-
Unproven though, the top level.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think again he's a hungry young goalkeeper who will learn. But then you look at Basuno at Southampton, who was a massive talent. He didn't have a good season last season. It is very unforgiving.
He
The
had a
Premier
very
League.
bad season last season.
It's tough when you're conceding lots of chances. You know, that's one thing I would say. So he might be the same. You don't know. I just think Vincent Kompany. I think he's got something special. I really do, and I can see him being a top-class manager in the future. So I think he'll tweak certain things. It's all very well saying I'm going to play this way, but he'll realise he can't do that all the time in the Premier League. So I think they'll be okay.
Okay, all right. So here we go then. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go play a little quiz. We're going to play a little quiz. And that quiz is title, top 4, relegation, top scorer and best new signing of the season. Now, I don't want you to waffle on, Minto.
Okay.
I want you to just give me the answer, okay? Because I know what you like. You like to caveat everything to ensure that you can always insert a little get out
I
clause.
resemble that.
Do what you did as a player. Don't hang on to the ball for too long. Just give it to Zola.
Just give it to somebody else.
If Franco's in the side,
Yeah.
if only I had a Franco here with me,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
wouldn't
yeah.
say a word. Trust me.
It's a little bit harsh, isn't it? You've got a Frody Grodash at the
Harsh
end.
but fair. Yeah, absolutely.
And also, I'm going to ask you another question towards the end before we go about the ground you're most looking forward to getting back to. So have a think about that. But let's start with title, top 4 relegation, top scorer and best new signing. Crook, title.
Arsenal.
Scott,
City.
Manchester United.
Good man.
Top 4, I'm going to go Manchester City, Arsenal, Liverpool and Manchester United. Scott?
I'm tweaking third and fourth. So, City, Arsenal, United, Liverpool, Chelsea fifth.
Top
He didn't
4
ask you that.
I asked you for.
Arsenal, City, United, Liverpool.
Okay, so we're all pretty similar, to be honest. Relegation.
Sheffield United, Luton, Wolves.
Sheffield United, Luton, Everton.
Sheffield United, Luton and Nottingham Forest.
Wow.
You were so nice to them last season.
I know.
What happened?
Well,
Has Steve Cooper not replied to a text or something?
Oh, that's definitely something like that.
look, the truth is,
He's offered him to go on
Actually,
holiday, isn't
to
he?
be
You know,
fair,
I
Steve
think
said
when
no.
we were covering for White and Jordan, he kept saying, "Yeah, I'll get Steve. I'll get Steve." Never happened.
I've turned against them now.
Unbelievable.
No, I think recruitment-wise, it hasn't been as good as last season. I think they wanted more, they haven't got more. So, look, I hope I'm wrong because you know how much I love the tricky trees, but I'm just looking at the data, looking at the situation at the bottom of the table, I think they might have a difficult season. I do hope I am wrong.
We all hope we're wrong.
Top scorer.
Now,
Oh, this is going to be interesting.
well, we're all going to say Haaland.
No,
Which is
I don't
boring.
necessarily sure that we should all say something.
Well, I'm not going to say Haaland.
Maybe we should do it without Haaland. Should we do like?
No,
what's the-
I'm happy to do it with Haaland.
Oh, okay.
Because I think it'll be Mo Salah.
Okay.
Bearing in mind that Liverpool don't have Champions League football, I wouldn't expect him to play much in the Europa League, and I think
No?
he will. I think he will score a lot of goals in the Premier League.
All right,
I
go
think
on.
he'll play a lot in the Europa League.
Who are you gonna
but
go
he'll still
for?
score a lot of goals. Yeah, look, I'd have to go for Haaland, and obviously
Straight down the middle.
Well, as Haaland, Kane,
1 to
Salah,
2 favourite.
you can't go further than that. One person I think, Ollie Watkins, who at Villa.
You've said Haaland. That's it. You're finished. You're done.
One
Can
word
I not
answer.
just mention one
No,
dark
because
horse?
I want to have one.
You're
then.
going to say
one
Alex
dark horse.
Isak.
I want Darwin Nunez, and you're going to say it.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
No, I'm taking Darwin Nunez. You've gone for Haaland. I'm going for Darwin Nunez. XG last season, much better than his actual goal return. And ultimately, I think he'll convert those chances this year.
Yeah.
So Scott has gone for Man City to win the league, odds-on favourites, and Haaland to be top goal scorer, odds-on favourites.
Do you want your money back, or do you just want to throw it away? What do you want?
Want some bold predictions?
You tell me what you want. Do you want your money back or not?
I tell you, he gave you a bold prediction a little bit earlier on, which was, he didn't think you were going to last the season.
Is that right?
Yeah, you're going to talk yourself out of a job between now and the end of the season.
Who said that?
You did.
When did I say that?
Don't tell everyone. I've got the text message. Right. Best new signing of the season?
Moussa Diaby.
I can't look further than Declan Rice.
There's only one answer to this question. Mason Mount.
Oh, he's got the shirt. He's got the season ticket.
Yeah. He has responded.
He's got the Mancunian
He has
wife.
responded in a text to Sam.
Look, lucky thing about doing a podcast on YouTube and being able to be contacted on Twitter is that you can give us your comments and your predictions as well. We're going to keep ours, and we're going to keep revisiting them over the course of the season on Premier League All Access as we go through the campaign. We might have a look in a couple of weeks' time at the end of the transfer window and see what we think and whether or not we want to be able to revise them. But why don't you send us your predictions for those categories, and then we'll maybe have a look at them over the course of the next week, and it might influence our decision by the time we get to September. We'll continue to have great fun over the course of the season. Make sure you download the podcast every Monday and Thursday. Remember, it's available on YouTube, on the talkSPORT YouTube channel, every single Monday. Us three will always be there. You excited about the new season?
I'm always excited.
And
Even
what about
more so
you?
now, because I think it is difficult to know who's going to win.
It's going to be a fun season. We love football. We get to go to a load of games.
It kind of feels like last season never really finished. I did the under-21 final, which was in July. We've been obviously on the airways throughout the summer. We've just done the Community Shield. I think all seasons roll into one now.
So you don't get a day off, is
There's
that what
still
you're
an
saying?
anticipation. Never get a day off. As you've seen, never get a day off.
Apart from the week in Goodwood and the 3 weeks in Portugal.
Yeah.
But apart from that, never has a day off. Best ground, one you're looking forward to going to next season, quickly?
I'm looking forward to Kenilworth Road.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Again, that's a tap-in.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to going back to Old Trafford.
Love me, everybody.
As a
Old
fan,
Trafford.
first game of the season against Wolverhampton
Old
Wanderers.
Trafford.
I'm looking forward
So
to coming back to Wembley. Hopefully we'll be back at Wembley, the FA Cup final, later on in the year, celebrating Maurizio Pochettino picking up the trophy, his first one for Chelsea.
Chelsea
You
Tottenham
never
FA Cup
know.
final.
I've already got my tickets sorted for the
Have
FA
you?
Cup final.
Good.
Yeah, I've already.
I'll be working, so
Yeah,
I'll come into the
nice.
bar with you
Surely you
afterwards.
get a guaranteed FA Cup final ticket.
I
Is
should
it
do.
not like Wimbledon? If you win the championship, like you become a member.
Hold on.
I
Is
need
that
to- I need to
you got
find
that
out.
medal on underneath
Yeah,
there?
there
Oh,
it
he
is
has,
there.
yeah.
There it is,
yeah,
there it is
yeah. You will remember that Scott Minto won the FA Cup in 1997. If you didn't, check it out on YouTube. Thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it. It's been great to have your company. Remember, the podcast will be out on Thursday previewing all the first weekend's action, and it's also available on the talkSPORT app.